If some of you are as old as some of us here at Sideprojects, then you may remember a time, if not before the internet existed, then certainly when the internet was a very different place. That would be me. 30 years ago, just around the time when the internet was starting to creep onto people's home computers, the very idea of being able to send an electronic message from one side of the world to the other in a matter of minutes was pretty new and exciting. Back then, of course, websites were primarily text-based for the pure and simple reason that should you attempt to download any sort of image, then you better have an interesting movie going on in the background because you were going to be there for a while. Between then and now, technology has evolved so much that only the most foresighted of individuals could have any idea just where all of this was leading. As we now live in a time where people are far more likely to send a quick instant message or a WhatsApp or a Telegram than go through the tedious business of composing a formal email, we are quite logically left wondering just what will be next to go. In today's episode, we're going to attempt to answer the question as we take a look at some of the most popular technologies that probably won't be around for much longer. Just before we continue today's episode, I've got something to share with you. Now, I'm not much of a skincare expert or enthusiast. I mean, I'm a middle-aged dude. Honestly, I kind of find it a hassle. But good news, today's sponsor is Foreo. Have you ever felt that your skin needs a bit more hydration? Look, I have. Have I ever done anything about it in the past? No, it's kind of a hassle. Maybe I'll throw on some moisturizer if I'm feeling particularly fancy. Well, hydration has become a lot easier, especially on these hot summer days, and that's thanks to the UFO 3 from Foreo. This is a deep facial hydration device that can boost your skin's moisture by up to 126% in just 2 minutes? It's crazy. It's also got a warming feature if it's cold outside, but even now, in the summer, it helps mask ingredients absorb deeply into your skin, and it reduces wrinkles in just a week. You can connect it to the Foreo app, which guides through customized treatments. It's super easy to use, and if you're thinking about a perfect gift, whether it's for someone special or just yourself, hook yourself up, why not? It's the UFO 3. Don't miss out on the 30% discount using the link below and an extra 10% off with my code SIDEPRG10 for the first 50 people. SIDEPRG10. Didn't make it easy on myself, did I? Thanks Foreo for sponsoring today's video, and now back to today's episode. Imagine, if you will, the following situation. You've left all your Christmas shopping to the last moment. When you finally do arrive at your shopping center of choice, you spend at least an hour driving around looking for an empty parking bay. Once parked, you set off in the direction of one or two of the parking meters available, only to discover upon arrival that this particular one is out of order, and you'd have to hike all the way to the other end of the structure in order to obtain a ticket. This takes so long that when you actually do arrive back at your car to display your purchase ticket in the correct manner, you've already received a parking fine and therefore have to go through an appeals process, which is so deliberately inconvenient and tedious that you end up just paying the fine because it's easier. If this scenario does indeed sound familiar, then you might be pleased to hear that this particular piece of arcane technology is definitely on the way out. Although these devices should perhaps be described as ubiquitous rather than popular, there is no doubt that the humble parking meter is everywhere, spreading misery and rage with every second of its continuing existence. Of course, now we live in a world filled with high-resolution cameras. There really should be no need for these machines at all. The majority of companies who own these parking structures are switching over to a system whereby not only is your car's information captured as you enter and leave, you can then pay the resulting charge on your phone without having to stand up at all. Technology's wonderful, isn't it? Again, depending on your age, you may well have memories of answering your landline phone only to recoil in agony as an unremitting digital screech issued from the receiver. This was, of course, a misdirected incoming fax. Now, you might be thinking that surely nobody uses a fax machine anymore. Well, we thought that as well, but after conducting a little research, it turns out that many businesses, especially those in the legal and medical professions, still frequently send documents via fax. The main reason for hanging on to this somewhat archaic form of communication is that although it may be slower than sending an email, your information will always get there in the end, with the additional benefit that it will not be hidden away in a spam folder. Further, the internet's not actually required, and as long as you have an active phone line, then you can both send and receive faxes, and every time a fax is sent, an immediate paper receipt is generated, which makes it much harder for the recipient to claim that they never received it. In spite of all these benefits, fewer and fewer faxes are being sent every year. year. And with the increase of secure and encrypted email services coupled with a reduction in actual hardwired telephone lines, it seems likely that this rock-solid communication method probably doesn't have much more time before it's completely confined to the history books. On the 10th of April 2003, the first Blu-ray player was released in Japan. From there, the technology quickly spread to Europe and the US, and true high-definition home cinema viewing was available to all. Although Sony's Blu-ray was in direct competition with Toshiba's HD DVD, Blu-ray would eventually win the day, largely because Sony included the ability to play them in the PlayStation 3. As more and more studios began to release Blu-ray, the new format skyrocketed in popularity. That was until 2010, when sales peaked. Since then, Blu-ray sales, in fact, all physical media sales, have slowly dwindled. So much so that in 2019, Samsung, who were one of the largest manufacturers of Blu-ray players, stopped selling them altogether. Not only did this genuinely make it more difficult to buy a machine to play the discs, fewer and fewer discs were hitting the market. Sales have now dropped so significantly that Best Buy, who at one point sold the majority of Blu-ray discs that were purchased in America, pulled the format from both its physical and online stores. So, what caused the decline? Well, and we don't think anybody will be surprised at all to hear this, streaming services happened. Although when Netflix launched its online streaming option in 2007, the physical media industry appeared to be largely unaffected, this was mostly down to a comparative lack of available content. As their library grew and was joined by Prime Video, Hulu, Apple TV, and many others, the need to own a physical copy of a movie was greatly reduced. On top of all of this, the superfast broadband became both cheaper and more widely available. The one thing that Blu-ray had going for it, its superior quality, also began to fade. If streaming content continues to grow in popularity at the current rate, then it is highly likely that within about 10 years, physical media ownership will have been relegated to hardcore collectors and those who live in places where a fast, reliable internet connection is still not available. In 1981, IBM released the first personal computer. That is, the first personal computer that conformed to the standard configuration we all know today, comprising a base station, a keyboard, and a rudimentary monitor, and sporting a blazing fast 4.7 MHz processor with lots of expandable slots and upgradable RAM. This thing took the business world by storm. To this day, the basic configuration has remained largely the same. Sure, you can now plug in a mouse, have a fancier screen, and even the cheapest off-the-shelf model has more power than anyone back then could have dreamed of, but if somebody from 1981 was somehow sent forward in time to the present day, the desktop computer would be one of the few things they would probably recognize. Even when laptop computers became something you could actually use for work in the mid-90s, the desktop was still there, more popular and more powerful. So why the comparatively recent decline in popularity? Well, put simply, with the advances in both battery and processing power, not to mention storage, having a huge desktop computer taking up space in your house just isn't that necessary anymore. The average user can get more than enough power out of a high-end tablet or laptop, with the added bonus that they can also slip it into a backpack or a briefcase. Even for those who prefer working with larger or multiple screens, these can simply be plugged into a far smaller machine when required. Bearing all of this in mind, whilst there will always be a niche market for exceptionally powerful desktop computing, especially among those who produce ultra-high-definition video content, the home desktop computer seems destined to go the way of such superfluous devices as the standalone sat-nav. Especially when you consider that the majority of us now carry out 70 to 80% of the tasks for which we would have used those machines now on our phones. Now, the next entry is going to be slightly different. While all the things we've mentioned so far are destined for obsolescence due to them no longer being practical or having been replaced by more effective alternatives, the petrol car may well be forced into retirement by the various governments around the world. Ever since Carl Benz released his motor wagon in 1885, vehicles powered by the burning of fossil fuels have gone from strength to strength. Although the technology has improved significantly over the years, the most important element, petrol, is still the preferred fuel for vehicles across the globe. Unfortunately, as we all know by now, petrol is a derivative of crude oil, and not only is the amount of crude oil on the planet finite, but burning it, or anything made from it, has proven to be extremely detrimental to the environment. Therefore, in order to meet various climate change pledges, many countries have set dates beyond which the sale of fossil fuel burning vehicles will no longer be allowed. So, just how widespread is this upcoming ban, And when's it going to come into force? With regards to the first question, the answer seems to be pretty widespread. Countries that are currently planning to phase out include the UK, Ireland, France, Norway, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, and the United States. As for just when this will happen, dates seem to vary. Norway plans to introduce a ban on fossil fuel-powered vehicles by the end of 2025, with the other countries falling in line by 2040. It is perhaps important to point out that in all the examples we were able to find, it is only the sale of new cars that is affected. You will not, despite what several less than reputable news outlets have claimed, be forced to stop driving your current car, nor will the sale of petrol or diesel be banned. Nevertheless, all cars, especially those built more recently, have a limited service life, so within a few short decades, seeing a petrol car on the road may be as notable as seeing a functional Model Ford T today. When electronic cigarettes first became popular around 2005, they were widely advertised as a safe, more socially acceptable alternative to smoking. So, first of all, is this true? Well, actually it would appear not. According to the American Lung Association, quote, e-cigarettes produce a number of dangerous chemicals, including acetaldehyde, acrolein, and formaldehyde. These aldehydes can cause lung disease, as well as cardiovascular disease. Furthermore, the majority of these products contain nicotine, which, apart from being insanely addictive, has been proven to slow down adolescent brain development. This is a particularly serious problem, as there are a lot of vaping products, such as flavored liquids, which are primarily designed to appeal to the younger market. It has also been proven that e-cigarettes, much like their more old-fashioned counterpart, produce enough unsavory chemicals to be dangerous to innocent bystanders as well as the user. Although all of this is very concerning, it does not explain why the UK is banning the sale of disposable vapes and many other countries have pledged to follow. After all, smoking tobacco is much more dangerous, and that's still going to be available. So what's the deal? Well, there are several reasons for this, but the main problem is that each of them contains a small battery. Batteries are notoriously difficult to recycle or dispose of safely. In the UK alone, approximately 67.6 million of the devices are thrown away annually. Secondly, if you believe the Prime Minister, and we will grant you that believing any politician is often a slippery slope, far from providing an alternative to smoking or being used as an aid to quitting, e-cigarettes are in fact causing thousands of children and young adults to become nicotine dependent every month. Regardless of the reasons behind the ban, the chances are that this relatively new fad will be a thing of the past in just a few short years. Although the original digital cameras were inferior in almost every way to their less high-tech counterparts, the combination of wanting to be involved in something new combined with the fervent hope that things would improve helped to boost sales. This gamble paid off for digital camera manufacturers in a big way. In 2004, just 14 years after the release of the Logitech Photoman, the first digital camera to go on sale in the United States, sales of digital cameras surpassed those of traditional film cameras around the world. It didn't stop there either. By 2010, the digital camera industry was estimated to be worth approximately $38 billion globally, or about $47.3 billion in today's money. However, after that, sales began to decline. A small part of this decline was probably due to changes in the economic environment. But as we are sure you are all aware, there was a far greater threat to the standalone digital camera, that of the smartphone. In October 2011, the iPhone 4S was released with a 4-megapixel camera. Although this was still far behind top-end digitals, Nikon's premium range being equipped with a 12-megapixel sensor, camera phones were starting to be less of a novelty and more of a serious alternative to carrying around a separate device. Today, of course, the situation's even more bleak. Mobile phones are capable of capturing such high-quality images and shooting such high-quality video that many semi-professional photographers and even YouTubers are content to use their phones. In today's social media-obsessed world, the camera phone has another advantage. Not only do you always have it with you, but it is equipped with a vast array of features to take advantage of the fact that it's always connected to the internet. It's very easy to take a picture or a video and have it live online in a matter of seconds. Although some digital cameras do now offer these features, they came comparatively late to the game. Ultimately, and we feel like we've said this a lot throughout this video, unless you have a very specific need for ultra high quality images, then there really is no need to purchase a digital camera. Therefore, like so many others that once reigned supreme, the shutter is slowly closing with a snap of finality on this industry.